And as a matter of fact, my brother is here, man. Give him a round of applause. My brother, Jules for Ring IQ. Let's give him a round of applause.
What's good, Coach?
Man, I'm sorry about that, man. I just looked and realized you was there. How long you was waiting?
Oh no, I was there for like 5 minutes, but I'm glad that you set it up the way you did, because those are all questions that need to be asked. Most people forgot that Showtime, they did used to, or at least you used to hear more about what a pay-per-view did, not but 2 or 3 years ago, but little by little over time, you saw they stopped reporting what they were saying. We didn't get a preliminary number or anything for Davis versus Cruz, but for Davis versus Romero, it looks like they exaggerated a bit, because initially they said, well, it'll top out at 275,000 pay-per-view buys, but you have to pay attention to the language. They're not telling you it did 275. They're telling you it will or it could get to 275. That when it's done, when we're done counting, it looks like it might be 275. Mm-hmm. So in reference to what you mentioned about Oscar, I believe the truth is somewhere in the middle. I believe that perhaps Gervonta Davis has done better than just 100,000 pay-per-view buys, but certainly less than what's being reported. And what these are leverage tactics. They don't want you to know Gervonta Davis's true market value, because then his opponents, like a Devin Haney, like a Ryan Garcia, like a Shakur Stevenson, can turn right around and say, hey, wait a minute now, don't act like that with me, because this is what you're good for. You're good for 170,000 pay-per-view buys, not 200,000, not 300,000. You're overestimating your own value. That's why they like to keep the numbers and the actual market value of the fighter under wraps, because they don't want you to know what he's really good for, that he's not really a cash cow because he can't finance a good offer to Devin Haney.
You know what, Jules? It's amazing you say that, because now, I have a master's degree in common sense, just like you do, my fellow Capricorn brother, and they don't, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but if they're not releasing these numbers, Showtime don't say nothing, maybe other promotions, PBC don't say anything, then am I to believe these leaked reports that come out, that come through Michael Benson or Mike Carpenter? And this is no knock on them. They're probably reporting what someone told them that may be close to the situation, but we don't know, right? And I'm not getting into whether the person does this or does those numbers. You know what I mean? The reason why I'm bringing it up is because, like you say, they like to use that as leverage. You see a lot of people online arguing, debating, threatening people, saying they're going to pull up, arguing about these fighters' pay-per-view numbers. Because a lot of these guys online, Jules, as you know, they live their lives vicariously through these boxers. So I guess they feel like any success that this fighter may have that they don't know is their success. So, and they try to run with these certain narratives, but I like to ask pertinent questions like yourself. Like, wait a minute, man. Okay, you saying he did this and he did that, but we don't know. And then you put this out there, and then everybody knows that my fighter does 200-something pay-per-view buys. No, we don't know, because you never revealed the numbers. And you never even told us what he did. Somebody else who came with a sources say report told us what he did. And these YouTube channels, who you probably have control of, said it as well. So no, man, no. It could be a possibility that these guys are using smoke and mirrors, like you said, to use as leverage. To use as leverage. You see what I'm saying? And that's a good possibility, because they're not telling us what it is. You know what I mean? Well, what do you think about that, Jules?
I mean, you look at the guarantees to a successful pay-per-view. Wilder versus Fury 1 was likely the only successful pay-per-view that Wilder and Fury had, because that's the only one that wasn't a box office flop. And most people don't know what a box office flop is. It's not based on a specific number of pay-per-views that it sold per se. It's based on the operational costs of the fight. What did you guarantee to the fighters, that dollar amount versus the dollar amount that it generated? That's the only fight where they yielded a profit, because Bruce Trempler himself says they lost money on the second fight, and the third fight sold less than the second fight, even though the guarantees were comparable. Whereas if you pay attention to the first fight, the guaranteed purses to the fighters came up to $7 million, but the pay-per-view sold 325,000 pay-per-view buys. So you can see there's definitely a profit margin there between what it did at the box office and what it did at the gate based on low operational costs. That's the key
That's the key
word.
word. Low operational cost. That's the key word. Yep.
There's a profit margin in there. So you think about that, 325,000 pay-per-view buys. Not the biggest success, but certainly a big success. And then you look at Gervonta Davis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at what his numbers look like. It's like, well, if you really were that successful at the box office, you'd be able to guarantee Devin Haney at least $3 million because that's what Tyson Fury was guaranteed. You'd be able to guarantee $3-4 million if you really were broaching 300,000 plus pay-per-view buys. But we all know that you're not, because when we look at what's reported to the commissions in terms of guaranteed purses, $500,000 to Isaac Cruz, $500,000 to Rolly Romero. These are not huge guarantees. So it seems to me that you can't afford Devin Haney. You can't afford Shakur Stevenson, because those guys are great fighters too, and they're not going to fight for peanuts on the dollar. These are champions. One of them, an undisputed champion. You can't hope to get him in the ring with anything under $3 million. If anything, he just made $2.8 million being the B-side to George Kambosos in Australia. You can't get a guy like that in the ring with anything under $3 million. And what did we hear Leonard Ellerby say? Oh, well, it's good that he made money at Matchroom, but we're not going to guarantee him that. They're telling on themselves if you pay attention. They're telling on themselves. Like, y'all don't got the money to guarantee Devin Haney.
Yeah. Jules, you hit the nail right on the head. Now, we've been hearing another thing that me and you both on Twitter, and Twitter's the Wild Wild West. We've been hearing this word cash cow. I saw your video. Let me tell you something. This is one of the most beautiful pieces of work that I've seen. The way you fundamentally broke it down, because cash cow, face of boxing. I think Leonard Ellerby, and shout out to Booger Ray Leonard. So Leonard Ellerby said that Tank Davis, did he say he's the face of boxing? No, he said all roads.
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
yes, he did.
He's the face of boxing. I think Ishe Smith said something of that sort. He's the cash cow, yada yada yada. Explain to us, okay, what is Anthony Joshua? What is Canelo Alvarez? And what is a Tank Davis or Errol Spence or a Terence Crawford or anyone else? Let's please explain to the audience, what is a cash cow? What does that mean? What is the face of boxing and what is a cash cow? And please break it down the way you broke it down on the video, man. I got it saved because I was going to do a whole show on it, but I want to get your permission. But I'm going to do a whole show on it later on. But go ahead.
Well, a cash cow is essentially the boxer that draws the most at the box office. There can be more than one cash cow present in a given era, but a cash cow, the characteristic of a cash cow and the defining characteristic is that they draw the most at the box office, so much so that they can offer their opponents life-altering money that they can't make on their own. Like when Anthony Joshua offered Charles Martin $8 million for his IBF title. He offered him $8 million, even though Charles Martin wasn't an $8 million fighter. He wasn't getting that on his own. Not even Deontay Wilder, the only other champion at the time. He wasn't making $7 or $8 million a fight at that time. And that's the defining characteristic of a cash cow. That is your Floyd Mayweather, your Oscar De La Hoya, your Mike Tyson, and before them, your Sugar Ray Leonard. These are the guys that not only do they draw the most at the box office, but they can offer you the most for a fight. Whereas Errol Spence Jr. and Gervonta Davis, they're not necessarily cash cows. What they are is moderately successful fighters that when you put them out there, they can bring you some money back, but they're not necessarily cash cows, because if Errol were a cash cow, for example, they wouldn't be bickering over finances right now. They wanted to say that Spence versus Crawford was a bigger fight than Canelo versus Golovkin 3. But when you think about it, Canelo versus Golovkin 3 is done. Spence versus Crawford isn't. They're bickering over money as we speak. If Errol really were a cash cow, he could offer Terence a career high purse the same way that Canelo Alvarez gave Caleb Plant a career high purse. Money that he can't make on his own, fighting anyone other than Canelo Alvarez. That is a cash cow. Generally, that's what all cash cows are. Your Floyd Mayweather, your Oscar De La Hoya, your Sugar Ray Leonard. In this era, your Canelo Alvarez, and to some degree, your Anthony Joshua. Because look at the money that Usyk is set to make for this fight, approximately $40 million. Now, Usyk is a highly skilled guy, great guy, but he is not a $40 million fighter unless Anthony Joshua is involved. And that's the defining characteristic of a cash cow.
Oh my God, that right there. Hey, listen, hey, that's a mic drop right there. That's a mic drop. So in Wakanda land, and I broke this. How I broke this down the other day, Jules. You have, like you say, you have low operational cost fighters. I like to call that the Chitlin circuit fighters. You know, they're hot, they're popular, they're cash cows on and with your local corner, with your local liquor stores in the hood, and on the Chitlin circuit. So on Chitlin YouTube, because you have the YTBC. So the way I like to call it, Jules, you have the Chitlin circuit version of the YTBC, and the Chitlin circuit. You know, those guys are popping. It don't take much to be popping. If you got a Cadillac, you got a Cadillac. You know, you got you some ice, some jewelry. You got some people. You do good at the gate. You know, when people come see you and stuff like that. That's what that is. Now you can't afford to pay nobody big money like a Canelo can afford to pay people, or a Joshua can afford to pay people. So if you can't afford to pay these people, you know, and you got a promoter that's saying, I'm not going to pay you $3 million or whatever the case may be, then that means you ain't got it.
Exactly.
It's not there.
You know, Gervonta Davis, I want to say this because I give him a lot of shit. It's not that Gervonta Davis can't draw. He can draw. He generated $5 million at the gate, so he definitely can draw. Yeah. And he is moderately successful with some, not all, some of his pay-per-views because they're not in the negative. You know, they actually do turn over a profit. But why? The operational costs are low. It don't take an arm and a leg to pay Isaac Cruz. He was a stand-in. It don't take an arm and a leg to pay Rolly Romero. He's not a star. He don't have a following. He's not a multi-million-dollar fighter. So as long as you're fighting those kinds of opponents, yeah, you're going to stay in the black. You're going to stay making a profit. But you'll get in the red if you try to get a Devin Haney. You'll get in the red if you try to get a Shakur Stevenson. Why? These guys are excellent fighters. They're not going to fight for peanuts on the dollar, and you're not a cash cow because you can't afford them. They're not going to fight you for $500,000 like Rolly will.
Right. You know what? The key word is this, like you said, man. Like, you know, when you're fighting certain fighters, they're making career high paydays. If you can only afford to pay me $500,000, then that tells me your drawing power right there. And low operational costs, $1.5 million guaranteed. We're gonna get you the rest on the back end. I guess an incentive-laced contract or whatever the case may be. So I get it, I understand. I'm not knocking anyone. That's how they do things. That's how they do things. And I'm not saying any names. I'm just throwing it out there as it relates to what Oscar De La Hoya. And I know you've seen what Oscar De La Hoya's been saying. Him and Leonard Ellerby has been going back and forth. And Oscar De La Hoya says he know for a fact what Tank Davis's numbers are. You know what I mean? He know they, you know, he might have was exaggerating a little bit. I don't know. But he said they're under 100,000 buys. So the way I took it was, and he said this on Fight Hype, the way I took it is though Oscar's like, look here, man, you know, these guys are creating some type of illusion that this guy is doing better numbers than what's being reported. It's not being reported by Leonard that he's doing 200 or something, almost 300,000 pay-per-view buys, but it's being reported by, you know, Michael Benson. He'll say sources say, yada yada. What's the other dude name? Mike Carpenter. He'll say according to sources. But I'm like, okay, y'all ain't have no sources when it was Esau Cruz, when it was Mario Barrios and Thurman, and when it was Martin and King Kong Ortiz. Y'all didn't have no sources then. You see what I'm saying? So it seemed like they selectively choose when to release. Sources say, so, you know, this fighter did 200 and something thousand pay-per-view buys. Why do you think they selectively do that, in your opinion?
Well, the rule of thumb is if they had something to brag about, they'd be bragging about it. The Isaac Cruz fight is likely the fight that Oscar De La Hoya is referencing, because that was a tenuous situation. Like, you talking about, they was building up a Rolly Romero fight. 2 weeks out, Rolly can't fight. They pull him out. They pull in Isaac Cruz. Well, that's not the fight you were building up. I don't know that anybody was that interested in Rolly, but at the end of the day, that's not good for an event that you're promoting. That 2 weeks out from the fight, you pull the guy you've been promoting out and swap him out for someone that no one knows. So when Oscar says that he heard that this guy's pay-per-views are doing under 100,000 buys, it's likely in reference to that one, because if any one of them flopped, it would have to be that one. I don't know if the Rolly Romero one was a flop. I don't get the sense that it was, but I do get the sense they're exaggerating, because they always exaggerate. They exaggerated about the Santa Cruz numbers. They exaggerated about the Barrios numbers. They didn't even bother to report the Isaac Cruz numbers because there's nothing to brag about there. So when you see that they put a number out there, you got to take it with a pinch of salt. That, you know what, if you say it's 275 or it could be 275, you know what I hear? 225. And when you say 225, I hear 170. If you say 150, I hear under 100,000, because they are exaggerating and they have a reason to exaggerate. Leverage tactics. You can't A-side Ryan Garcia if he knows what's in the books. If he knows what's in the books, he can haggle. Like, wait a minute, you're not that much bigger of a draw than I am, because this is what you're doing and this is what I'm doing, you know, and that applies to all these young fighters that are out there. It's an illusion that Gervonta Davis is the only guy you can fight to make money, when Devin Haney made $2.8 million without you. George Kambosos made $10 million without you. I know Shakur Stevenson's going to at least have $1 million, maybe a little over $1 million for Shakur when he moves up to lightweight, because I think he got something like that for the Oscar Valdez fight. These kids ain't starving without a Davis fight, but that's the illusion that they want to create, that unless you're fighting Gervonta, you ain't making no money. You ain't drawing nothing. Well, that's not the fucking truth. The truth is you're lying about his numbers for leverage tactics. You want leverage over all these young guys, and you don't really got it like that because you can't afford all these young guys.
You know what? Like this brother right here, he said that this brother right here, what the guy's name? I just looked at him. He said Joshua. What he said? This guy named Joshua Furlong. He said he was basically saying that Tank Davis, not Tank Davis, but Oscar De La Hoya and Oscar and Ryan Garcia lies all the time. My thing is, okay, cool. All of them lie all the time.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is what I see going on online. When you and I tell you guys time and time again, I choose the side of boxing. When you draw a hard line in the sand and you pledge allegiance to certain fighters and promotional companies, your mind is, you already have these preconceived notions in your brain that, hey, whatever they say, I'm running with because it supports what I want to believe, my narrative. Instead of being objective and being a critical thinker and being objective, you take the subjective position, and whatever a certain promoter says, whether it's Leonard Ellaby, whether it's Oscar De La Hoya, or network executive, whether it's what's the guy from Showtime, Stephen Espinosa. Yeah, Stephen Espinosa, well, whether it's Bob Arum. When you take a hard line, I'm choosing sides. You right now, you already biased, and any information that you're going to look for, you want to look for stuff that confirm what you already want to believe in, which is the confirmation bias.
Well, I would ask the Furlong guy, okay, I'm not going to vouch for Oscar because I don't know the fucking man. But if he lied about something, just tell me what it was and how it pertains to this, because I don't recall Oscar telling a lie when it comes to this. I remember when Oscar told the world that Al Heyman blocked the Rigo fight, they accused him of being a liar. They said he's bullshitting. He just doesn't want to do the fight, right? That's what they said when Oscar said Al Heyman blocked the fight. Not but a few weeks later, Leo Santa Cruz himself confirmed, yes, it was Al Heyman that blocked the fight. He didn't like the fight. He said nobody wanted to see it, and that's why the fight didn't materialize. So I don't jump to the conclusion that Oscar is automatically lying, even if I don't believe everything he says, because I don't. But I'm not going to jump to a conclusion that, oh, well, he's a liar, so I'm not going to believe anything he says. I'm going to look at both sides, just like Coach said. What's likelier than not? And you're not going to convince me that people was clamoring to see Gervonta Davis versus Isaac Cruz or Rolly Romero, because when you pay attention, those ain't the fights that people are asking for. They're not asking for none of that shit. They've been asking you to fight Lomachenko. They've been asking you to fight Lopez. They're now asking you to fight Haney because he's your division's undisputed champion. You're not. The fighters you fight don't even fucking have fans. Who the fuck is a Rolly Romero fan? Outside of the dumb shit that he says at press conferences, who has a high opinion of his boxing that I need to see this Romero fight? We all know he got a gift against Marinez. We fucking seen it. Fucking same Marinez that Richard Comey stomped out in 6 rounds. Same Marinez.
Hey, Jules, the streaming, it brings me to something else. When Tim Scott was talking about, hey, you know what? No one is going to buy the Crawford Spence fight. The economics is not there. Yada 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 yada. And it's so funny to me. And he said that people are going to steal it. And I've been dying to talk to you about this. Now I don't broke down part of what the demographics are already of Crawford and Spence fans. So I ought to broke that down on here. But I noticed he never said that about Canelo. When the PBC had this ungodly amount of money, $50 million, $100 million for 3 fights for Canelo, Tim Smith never said, the economics is the reason why that we won't be able to make the Canelo and Caleb Plant fight. Those guys are not going to buy the fight. The people who say they want to see Canelo become undisputed, they're not going to buy the fight. They're just going to illegally stream it. I noticed the language. They didn't say that when it was Canelo fighting an unknown Caleb Plant, a $750,000 fighter on paper, and whatever he got on the back end, I don't know. They didn't say that with him. But when it comes to this fight with Crawford and Spence, it seems that it's always some shit when it's a big fight that's to be made from a fighter that's a non-traditional PBC fighter. Remember, Canelo had to walk away from the deal the first time with PBC, and then they ended up getting back together, and then they made the deal for him to fight Caleb Plant. But it just seems to always be something. Now the economics not there. They're gonna stream it. People got to be realistic. And I'm like, dude, you got so many people online who put this out there as though you guys are, this Wakanda shit. I call it the Wakanda shit. You got all this money. You got all this money, and we're going to sign. It's going to be butterflies and lilies and rainbows and all this shit. And I'm like, dude, something as simple as making a fight between two guys who fight they've been bubbling for years. This all kind of, streaming and, this and that. And I'm like, well, Canelo, well, none of that shit. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why do you get what I'm going at?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with Canelo, it's simple. They don't hesitate to put up a big amount of money for a Canelo fight because they know he's good for it. They know if you put up 40 for Canelo, he can bring it back. He can bring it back at the box office. He can bring it back at the gate. But if you've been paying attention to Spence's numbers, they're on a downward trend. Ever since he debuted on pay-per-view with Mikey Garcia, he hasn't done those numbers since. Even the Ugas fight was just above 200,000 pay-per-view buys. So you have to think, Terrence Crawford just fought Sean Porter for $6 million up front. He's likely going to want more than that for a Spence fight. It's an undisputed fight. It's supposed to be the biggest fight in the division. And because he wants more money than what he got for Porter, but because that pay-per-view flopped, that's where the problems are. And the same applies to Spence. Whatever Spence wants for a Crawford fight has to be more than what he just got for Ugas, than what he just got for Sean. He's going to want more money too. Yeah. So the real issue is that the money that they probably both want, it's not there. And this illusion that Errol is this huge draw, well, you ain't a big enough draw to guarantee Crawford something substantial. See, Canelo can guarantee a fighter that ain't worth $10 million $10 million because he's a fucking cash cow. Errol is not a cash cow. If you can't guarantee Crawford $10 million, how Canelo guaranteed Plant $10 million, you ain't no fucking cash cow. And that's really where the dilemma is, that all the lies that they've told in the last 4 years, they're starting to catch up, and people are getting tired of it because you know what? People want to see Devin Haney versus Gervonta Davis. They want to see Crawford versus Spence, but you've been spoon-feeding them bullshit, and you can't keep up with your own lies now. If Errol is that much of a fucking draw, then you should be able to get Crawford in the ring, the same way Canelo got Billy and Caleb and Callum in the fucking ring. He's good for the money. You're not, and that's the problem. Errol's not good for that money, so sacrifices have to be made. And I'm not biased. Crawford has to make some sacrifices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Errol, he has to make some sacrifices. Now, I don't know what the number is. Truthfully, none of us do. I don't know what number Terrence wants, but common sense tells me if he got 6 for Sean, he's probably going to want 10 for Errol, or just more than 6, because this is a bigger fight. Errol, well, his guaranteed purses, and that's another indicator that you're not a fucking cash cow. Showtime guarantees Canelo more money than they guarantee you, but you fight on their network more than he does. They guaranteed him 40. They were willing to guarantee him $100 million for 2 fights. When I look at what's reported to the commission in reference to Errol, $2 million for Sean, 1.5 for Ugas. These are not cash cow purses. I think Derek Chisora gets guaranteed more money than that for a fucking pay-per-view. Dillian White gets guaranteed more money than that for a fucking pay-per-view. Do they call them cash cows? No. They're draws. They're draws. They can draw. Just like you can draw. I would never say Errol has no marquee value. That's just not true. But you're not as big a draw as what they say you are. And the only reason they've been saying that shit is so that you would have leverage over Terrence. But now that you have to actually deal with Terrence, cat's out the bag. You ain't
Yeah,
all that.
yeah, cast out the bag, and then when you're negotiating, and you're saying that, hey, well, I'm saying, hey, Jules, I sell more pay-per-views than you per fight. I did 1 million and this and that. So now, me and you in negotiations to fight each other. I'm pretty sure you and your team are going to be like, okay, let's see. You're saying you're doing 1 million some pay-per-view buys. Yes. Can we see that? Can you show us proof of that?
Mm.
Because I need to see proof. If you're telling me that this guy's doing astronomical numbers and stuff like that, okay, now the rubber has hit the road. Now we're negotiating. I need to see the proof, because you're using those talking points as leverage to justify offering me this. Okay, well, you got to show me proof that this leverage that you say that you're using against me, show me that that's what it is. Oh, no, we ain't got to show you. Just take our word for it. No, it doesn't work that way, man.
Listen, when Dana White was trying to get into boxing, they said that he was in the market. He wanted to pair up with an outfit, and the story is that he looked at the PBC's books, and you'll notice that he didn't decide to buy. He didn't buy in. So he's privy. Dana White, UFC guy, for those that don't know, he's likely privy to the information that I'm talking about. That it's not that they don't have fighters that can draw a little bit. They can draw a little bit. Like, it would be a lie to say Gervonta Davis can't draw. Or Errol can't. He can draw.
Both of them are draws. Both of them are draws. Yeah.
But they're local draws, nominal draws. We're not talking about being able to guarantee the man opposite the ring $10 million. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about being able to guarantee the man opposite the ring $40 million. It's the reason that Bob Arum said that unless somebody subsidizes this fight, it may not happen. And you'll notice that a fight that was subsidized in recent memory is Joshua versus Usyk. The Saudis put up $83 million for the rights. Now, those are their rights. They can auction them off who they want to. But as far as Matchroom, they made their money. As far as the fighters, they made their money. It's there. It's all there. Whereas with this fight, you'll notice, hey, why don't Saudis bid on this fucking fight? Why don't they buy it? Because if they buy it, well, here's your purse, Crawford. Here's your purse, Errol. You do the fight. You do what you got to do as fighters. We'll worry about which network carries the fight. You'll notice it doesn't happen with their fighters. Saudi Arabian millionaires and billionaires are not bidding on this fight because, I'm sorry to say, it's not as big a fight as people make it out to be. It never was. The time to do this fight was in 2018 when the synergy around it was at a fever pitch. But you waited good up until Errol flips a Ferrari and his eye almost falls out. And Terrence's marquee value has been hurt because for the last 3 years, he hasn't fought the people that people wanted him to fight. It's not his fault because those people froze him out. Everything Showtime and the PBC did is how we got here.
So can you tell me the difference between Terrence Crawford when he was with Top Rank? Let me two-part question. When he was with Top Rank, do you feel like, and you just said it, that was the time to make that fight? Because I remember when Steve Kim was on, Steve called the show and he said that, hey man, the time to make that fight was then, because what happened with the Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fight, both promotional companies, they split the cost. And so now the PBC is on the hook to try to play both fighters. Wouldn't it have been better to make that fight with Crawford when he was on Top Rank? If money is your concern, if finances and economics is your concern, then why not make the fight when it's economically feasible for your company? When he was with Top Rank, why they didn't do that then?
Well, the reason that they didn't, there could be two reasons that they decided not to do that. One, which I tend to lean towards, it was never their plan to do that fight. It was never their plan to do it. And the second reason, maybe it was their plan, but they wanted to wait till Top Rank was out of the picture so that all the proceeds would go to them, so they don't have to split the pot with a Top Rank. And the problem with that kind of a plan is you have to bear all the risks by yourself then. You have to pay for everything by yourself. The guarantees to the fighters, the operational costs, it'll all be on you. The ideal time to have done the fight was when Terrence was with Top Rank, because Top Rank could have guaranteed him whatever the fuck he wants. You wouldn't have had to worry about Terrence. They give him what he wants. You give Errol what he wants. But they didn't want to have to split the pot. So in essence, it's greed. You didn't want to split the pot with Bob, with Top Rank, with ESPN. So you didn't do the fight when you should have done the fight because Top Rank could have helped you. Notice the difference between Wilder versus Fury 1, which was promoted by Showtime, and Wilder versus Fury 2, which was promoted by both Top Rank and the PBC. More than 2 times the pay-per-view buys. 325,000 the first time, 850,000 the second time. Now, granted, it was a box office flop, but that's because you overestimated the guarantees. That's all that was. The difference that I'm showing is look at how many more pay-per-views they sold when they worked together.
Yeah, when they worked together, and it wasn't any of the mumbo jumbo that we heard with Wrong Side of the Street, Top Rain Toby, Rome Network, Bob blocking the fight, this, that. And I tell people, I'm not here to change anyone's mind. Believe whatever you want to believe. If you live in Wakanda land and you want to accept Wakanda narratives, fine. That's what you want to do. Me, I just want to see the fights. Jules, this is a phenomenal boxing mind that I'm talking to. This guy is smart as hell overall, but he's definitely smart when it comes to boxing. And he know a lot of shit, a lot of more things in the sport of boxing and all of the different weight divisions than I do. He know a whole lot more, to be fair. So, and he's very, very articulate, and he breaks it down like a 57 Chevy. That's how you break shit down. But Crawford and Tyson Fury were on the same side of the street. So, and I think you already answered this question already. Why it wasn't wrong side of the street, wrong promoter, you with the wrong networks when it came to Deontay Wilder, which is a PBC fighter, fighting Tyson Fury. But when it comes to Crawford and Spence, when he was over there, it was the wrong side of the street, wrong network. You need to sign with the PBC. Why the language change from two fighters who was with the same promoter, same promotional company, but it was different. You know what I mean? The narrative that was being pushed was different.
That's why I had two answers to that question, and that's why a part of me feels it was never their intention to make Crawford versus Spence. That's the only way I can wrap my mind around it. That why were you okay to put Fury in the ring with Wilder? Well, Wilder did knock him down 2 times. Maybe you liked Wilder's chances in that fight, even in a rematch situation, because Wilder did land the right hand 2 times. Whereas with Terrence Crawford, maybe you never liked Errol's chances with Terrence Crawford. Maybe to you, it's just not worth the risk that you can make Errol money and Errol can make you money independently of a Terrence Crawford fight. That's why a part of me feels that, look, the only reason you're doing this fucking fight now is because you have to compete with fights like Canelo versus Golovkin. You have to compete with fights like fucking Joshua versus Usyk, an $83 million fight. And you can't compete with those fights with a Brandon Figueroa versus Adrian Broner, with a Danny Garcia versus Jose Benavidez. This is the best fight you can put on right now, and maybe that's the only reason you've decided to come around and do it, because before that, you didn't want to do it. The opportunity was there. You were cool working with Top Rank when it came to Fury because you liked Wilder's chances, but you're not cool with working with Top Rank when it comes to Crawford because you don't like Errol's chances. You never liked his chances. That's the only way I can explain it, because I'm like, they were okay working with Fury. They didn't care about none of that shit. But maybe it's because Fury got dropped 2 times. Whereas with Crawford, this is one of the, like, and motherfuckers, they call me a fanboy. I give a fuck. Right? Crawford is the best welterweight. Crawford is one of the top 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the world. In the world. It's different. You were fighting a cocaine head who was losing weight that was on the rebound. That's more favorable to your fighter than fighting a pound-for-pound elite fighter that doesn't balloon in weight between fights, that is always seen in the gym helping out his contemporaries between fights. This is not an unstable guy. He has a consistent track record of success, except at the box office. And that's why you didn't want him. These risks aren't worth this. So we're going to keep Errol away from him. And, it's just not our intention to make this fight. Errol himself said it when Terrence confronted him. Al Heyman gave him 4 names. None of those names were the name of Terrence Crawford. He said it, not me, not Coach Malachi, not another content creator. Errol said that. He gave him 4 names. Manny Pacquiao, Sean Porter, Mikey Garcia, and I think Keith Thurman was the 4th name he said. Right?
Yeah, that was in 2018 when they met face to face.
Exactly. Right. And that was out of the horse's mouth. So that always communicated to me. What I always took from that is they don't want to do this fight at all. Like, they don't want to do this fight. And if they're coming around to it now, it's because they've painted themselves into a corner. Wilder looks like he's at the end of his career. Who knows if he's going to come back? I don't know. I'm not saying that he's not, but he was one of their biggest draws. 325,000, 850,000, and almost 100,000 the last time. He has put up the biggest numbers for the PBC, even in box office flops. Better still, he still put up the most numbers. Not Errol, not Javante, not Keith, not Andy Ruiz, not Luis Ortiz. And we don't know if he's going to come back. So we don't know if you could do a big fight for Wilder. We don't know. This is the biggest fight you can put on at this time. This is it. And if it's fucked up right now, well, it's your fucking fault. You should have did it when he was with Top Rank, because they could have paid him. You pay Errol, they pay Crawford, they promote the fight to ESPN, you promote the fight on Showtime and Fox, because that's a PBC affiliated network. I'm sure they could work something out. You promote this from as many angles as you can, keep the operational costs low, guarantee Terrence 10 million. You know, guarantee Errol, because he has 3 belts, 15 million. That's still under 40 million. It's still under 35 million. It's still under 30 million. It's doable, but you waited too long, and now the fight ain't worth what it was worth in 2018.
Yeah, I think they made a bad gambit. They made a bad gambit. Now, what you just said is not going to bode well for those brothers and sisters out of Texas, because you know they very emotional when they come to their fighter. And I get it, I understand. It's not going to bode well for them. They're going to try to paint you a hater. Coach Malachi here, hater, he this, he that. You know, and it's like, no, we're just having a general conversation about, you know, just a lot of the stuff that as related to these pay-per-view numbers. I've always felt that these, you know, once Showtime stopped giving out the numbers, and we started hearing numbers from, and credit to Rick Glazer. I will say this: Rick will tell you, yeah, this is who I'm dealing with. He don't say the name, but this is who I get the numbers from. This guy works in the satellite and cable industry, and yada yada yada, blah, this quasi an attorney. He'll tell you that. These other guys, they can't reveal their sources. I understand that, but my source told me this. My source told me that. I get it. I understand you can't reveal your sources, but I just noticed how selectively they repeat the stuff that their sources tell them. I guess maybe it's because this is what we want you to say out there, to put that out there, and you just broke it down. They use it as a leverage, you know, as negotiation tactics, and want to have the leverage when it comes to negotiating fights, and especially when you don't never have to show that what you're saying. Listen, if this guy is who you say he is, and he's doing the numbers that you're telling me he's doing him, sir, why am I having a problem with you releasing the numbers? Not only that, why is the fighter who is trying to make a fight with one of your fighters, why he can't even see the, okay, well, you telling me, you're using A-side tactics on me, right? Okay, you're the A-side, whatever. You're saying that he's doing these numbers, and you're saying because he's doing these numbers, and in comparison to the numbers that I'm not doing, this is what you're using to justify paying me a small amount of money, and while your fighter getting paid the bulk of the amount of money. Okay, so can you please show me the evidence of that, what you're saying your fighter is doing, so that I can see it for myself? No. You don't need to see it. Just take our word for it. That sounds good in Wakanda land. In Wakanda land, that sounds good. That sounds good in the hood. It sounds good with Pookie, Ray, Laquita, Shaniqua. It sounds good with Man. It sounds good with dudes at the local corner store in the hood. It sounds good there. But when the rubber hits the road, you can't show those numbers to justify, to back up what you're claiming. It's all bullshit to me. It's all smoke and mirrors. And I am of the belief that this is the reason why people like Showtime, Steven Espinosa, and all of the other guys, they don't want to reveal their numbers, because the numbers are not doing what they are leaking out. These sources say reports. I believe that they are not doing what they're doing. How do I know? Do I have any actual facts on that? No. But what we do know is this: they're not releasing them.
Let's say this, Coach. The problem with Crawford versus Spence is a unique problem, because I believe that's a fight that could do well commercially, so long as operational costs are low. What's the problem? Both guys want a lot of goddamn money, and likely their guaranteed purses, what they expect to get up front guaranteed, doesn't match the sales projections. So you have to kind of plan for the worst, but hope for the best. That's what you got to do. The guarantee shouldn't be nothing crazy, and that's going to sound crazy to Terrence, because he just got $6 million up front for Sean. And he not going to go for that, or he might not want to. You know what I mean? But that's the situation. So let's put the pay-per-view amount that this fight could do at a moderate estimate between 350,000 or 450,000. The guaranteed purses should be based on that and that alone. Not Sean Porter, not Errol Spence, not Mikey Garcia, and what he did with Mikey. That's what it should be based on. This is what we think this fight is going to do at the box office. So your guarantees have to be based on that and nothing else. All right? Don't come in here expecting 20 up front. We ain't got it for you. That applies to both Errol and Terrence. If you want to do the fight, that's how the fucking fight gets done. The beauty of that is, say it does more than 450,000, or say it does 500,000. The break-even point is easier to hit. You get more money on the back end because there's an actual upside. It works out for everybody. But the misconception has everything to do with the lies they told. You told the world that Terrence ain't shit. Turns out Errol ain't much better either, because he can't guarantee Terrence a whole lot of money. If Terrence could get $6 million up front from Top Rank and ESPN for a Porter fight, why the fuck I can't get more with you? They said you the shit.
They said you the shit. Yeah. Yeah, you
said
got
you
all
the
the
shit.
money. You got all the money. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, too. Sorry about that.
Yeah. They say you the shit. They said that I ain't shit. You know, I'm an undisputed champion. You trying to become undisputed. I did that already. Never mind that. I did that. I'm a 3-division champion. You a 1-division champion. But y'all told me that I ain't shit. That's what y'all said. That my biggest fight is Errol. Well, how come Errol can't get me the kind of money up front I want? What if they're offering Terrence less than $6 million or $6 million? I don't know what dollar amount they're offering this man. I don't think any of us do, except Terrence and his team and Errol and his team. But wouldn't that be fucking ridiculous that fighting Errol gets me the same fucking money up front that fighting Sean got me? Well, for that shit, I should have stayed at ESPN.
And this guy, and this guy's supposed to be a cash cow from what they're saying. So, you know, if you're a cash cow, then you should be able to pay Caleb Plants like Canelo does. Well, shit, Canelo, like, listen, let me ask you a question. This is another argument, and I'm not going to hold you up. This is my last one. This is another argument. What was Caleb Plant's track record at pay-per-view before he fought Canelo?
Absolute zero.
So Caleb Plant had 0 pay-per-views prior to fighting Canelo. His first pay-per-view fight, he got a guarantee, what? He got $10 million or something like that?
That's the report.
So the report is Caleb Plant, with no pay-per-view track record, received $10 million fighting Canelo. Well, Canelo paid him that. Canelo brought the money. He brought the bag. He is the bag, right? So a guy who never fought pay-per-view before fights Canelo, gets $10 million. A guy who they've always reported his pay-per-view numbers, Terrence Crawford numbers, have been low, but he has a track record of having some pay-per-views. At least he has a track record. He's fighting another guy that's supposed to be the cash cow, according to the narrative, the face of boxing, the cash cow over there, and you can't guarantee him anywhere near to what Caleb Plant was guaranteed fighting Canelo. If you're supposed to be on the same level as Canelo, and there's a cash cow as Canelo, and the face of boxing is Canelo, that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, it's wrong. Look, at the end of the day, a lot of people, it's just like you said, they treat every subject like it's a polarizing subject. When you put your thinking cap on, think objectively. If you're Terrence Crawford and I got 6 for Sean, how am I supposed to get less than that or the same amount for you? You supposed to be bigger than him. This supposed to be a bigger opportunity for me than that opportunity. Now, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm not getting any fucking younger. I'm going to take these peanuts. This is why I sympathize, and you don't see me doing a whole lot of videos on this castigating anyone except for the PBC and Showtime. Why? You killed this fight when you didn't want to show Terrence in your graphics on Fox, when Errol sat up there on the podium belittling him and berating him, saying that he hadn't fought anyone. That's not build up for a fight. That's not how you build a fight. In the last 4 years, I don't think they were building up this fight, and it's only right that now it's on y'all to sell this motherfucker, because y'all the ones that killed it. Y'all killed this fight. Not Bob, not Top Rank. Bob didn't sit there talking shit about Errol. He just said, I want to do the fucking fight. That's it. I mean, granted, he said Terrence would beat him, but he's supposed to say that.
Yeah. Hey, Jules, thank you so much for coming by, man. Anything else you want to say? Wrap up, plug your show, or anything?
Subscribe to Coach Malachi. It's the best goddamn show on YouTube, goddamn it. New media, goddamn it.
I'm not the best, but I'm doing my thing. We got the daytime show. Y'all please subscribe to my brother, Ring IQ. I respect this brother's boxing mind. He's a really, really good guy. I got a lot of love for this brother, man. And I watch him every day. So even when I miss his lives, I watch the replays. I watch him every day. Y'all go please subscribe, man. And I'm going to rock out with the chat, man. Let's give our brother a round of applause. Jules, thank you for stopping by.
No problem.
Yes, sir. Shout out to Jules.
Man, I'm out of here, bro. Let's go. Come on.